Hello, and welcome back to the Richard Taliaferro Podcast, where we take a look at career insights and give advice to career changers. Sharon Foulston is a speaker, advocate, and author. Her work sits at the intersection of grief, identity, and renewal. She speaks on the mental health challenges of inheriting extreme wealth, combined with the loss of her father at 17 years of age. Her comeback story entailed getting back to nature, which evolved into the pursuit of many solo sailing adventures into the North Sea and Baltic Sea aboard her sailing yacht, Sophie. Her book, Unmoored, Sailing Alone Towards Wholeness, is due to publish October 6th. Sharon, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me. Yeah.
It's so good to see you again. I think we first met 25 years ago in Brussels, Belgium. A while ago, when I was working with the Wall Street Journal there. And I'm curious, when you think back to your time and yourself in Brussels, who was Sharon back then?
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? To reconnect with you after 25 years. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I think it's great connecting with you again. And yeah, obviously the person I was then, totally different, very, very young, a lot younger, pretty naive and very innocent and excited about what life held for me in the future. It was before I'd been a mother, before I took real control of my wealth. So they were early days, young days, but as a real sense of freedom. I had a real sense of freedom living abroad for the first time, away from the normal constructs of society and home and where I'd grown up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what was it like having that freedom and experiencing that freedom in Brussels?
Well, it was really, I mean, I really felt free.
Mm.
I felt very free, and I was financially free, personally free, and then meeting up with a lot of you guys that worked at the Wall Street Journal, and we had adventures together. Um,
Indeed, we did. Yeah.
so yeah, it was cool. We were doing a lot of, I remember I was doing a lot of outdoor pursuits then for charity.
Hmm. Okay. Okay. And yeah, I remember several of us, going down to Paris one weekend for something, for some event or something. And it was a lot of fun. I think we went swing dancing, if I remember correctly. Maybe lost to the fog of time, but I do remember, several of the adventures that we had together in Brussels, and those were fantastic. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think you and I even spent New Year's Eve together, I think, watching fireworks in Paris.
yes,
Is
yes,
that
that
right?
was
Yeah.
memorable. That was very memorable, and so
Really.
it was a really interesting time where I think a lot of us had a certain amount of freedom that we probably didn't have before. And so we were sort of getting used to that, I think.
Yeah, I think you can really reinvent yourself when you get out of your home country and you're in a totally different culture. And you can be whoever you want to be at the time. It's very liberating.
Yeah. And you can write your own story to a certain
Absolutely.
extent. Now, so looking back now, there was a moment earlier in your life that shaped so much of what came after. You, know, you lost your father at 17, which is an age where we're still becoming ourselves. What happened, and How did that loss shape not just your grief, but the person you became afterwards?
Yeah, so it was very sudden, being that it was a motor racing accident. So it was a sudden loss where he was at breakfast with us one morning,
Mhm.
and then he didn't come home in the evening, and we were never going to see him again. So that really shaped the grief.
Mhm.
And that was very sudden, but then the fallout was massive. There was such a mess in the family to sort out. So I lost a lot of structure at that time and a lot of guidance from my family, and got quite lost myself and didn't really know, it was my first day at university. So I didn't really do very well there then after that. And I turned to alcohol because being a student, that was fully available to us. So I got pretty lost, and I didn't get the money. I didn't inherit the money instantly at 17. So it was a gradual process where there were advisors involved and trustees, and it gradually the responsibility shifted to me from my mother. But it was around the age of 19, 20 years old, when you're still not fully formed at all. It would not be an ideal age to inherit wealth at all. Um, so I think what happened with my personality, unfortunately, was that the sadness, the grief became a part of my personality. It became very embedded in the core of who I was. And I carried around a sort of blanket of sadness, um, pretty much unbeknownst to me. I didn't really realize, I think, this was going on, and I just viewed the world with quite a negative, catastrophic, and dark perspective, because of this tragedy that had happened.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
um, things like special, celebrations would always evoke a lot of grief in me. Like New Year's Eve, well, it was always a difficult time, but thankfully with you, it was probably I was probably well distracted then. Um,
Yeah, right.
but birthday celebrations were difficult, and family reunions were particularly tough. Uh, that was a big trigger for me, and I don't think, because I was never really fully addressing my grief and the trauma from my childhood, so triggering events with the family were difficult, and I cried a lot. I cried. I was very unhappy. I think I was angry and unhappy, and anger is a misunderstood concept, and it's a big part of grief and loss.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? About what anger truly means from your perspective and from what you have experienced?
Yeah, well, I think anger is there's a lot more to it. Anger, underneath anger is often a repressed emotion, of sadness, betrayal, or a deep repressed emotion, and that needs to be dug out. And the anger really needs to be vented and expressed. And of course we're angry. We're angry. I was angry with my father for a long time for undertaking these risky sports like motor racing, which meant that he was taken from me. I was very angry, and very angry for him leaving at that time in my life when I needed him most,
Mhm.
and leaving me with my sister and my mother to deal with, which was not the easiest either. Not the easiest people to deal with. So
Mm.
yeah, I buried all these emotions beneath a persona, and the money enabled me to do that.
And I'm curious about what role models or mentors that you had along the way, really starting from your teens, your late teens, after your father passed away until your 30s. who was helping to guide you, in your path of inheriting wealth and deciding what to do with that wealth?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think um, it, yeah, if I had had better role models or people that were more aligned with my father, perhaps it would have been better. I think the problem was I then was then thrown into the financial world where my trustees were basically became my parents, and I was very close to my trustee, um, and yeah, they're protector roles, so there's nothing wrong in that, and it's probably quite usual for that scenario to happen. But their personality and their profession it's not entrepreneurial, it's not creative, and it's actually just quite dull to me. So I don't think, so I lost in touch with a lot of the innate personality of who I was, inherited from my father, but he had gone, and so I'd lost that. And I started to actually become quite a mimic of my mother. So my mother was a key role model for me, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
um, at that time. But then I'm not a complete perfect version of her, so I lost parts of myself that were not acceptable to her.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, so other role models, the advisors, financial advisors, are often big in this space. Um,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
but as I say, probably not enough creative business people. And I was always searching. I was always searching for people, for the right people to guide me.
I'm curious. You just mentioned creative business people, and I want to find out what that means for you when you say that, and what is that an offshoot of?
Well, I think it's because I was so caught up with my father and the family name and what my father had achieved. I mean, bear in mind it was rammed down my throat a lot of the time about what my father had achieved, where the money had come from, how lucky I was that this is what he created. So I became preoccupied with that. And I think I wanted to understand that a lot more and understand how he did it. And I
Mm-hmm.
did actually get involved in business angel investing, because that's where people are creating businesses from nothing, from zero, and that did fascinate me and interest me. But I don't think I had a good enough understanding of risk at that time, um, for the decisions I was taking. But yeah, I became a searcher all the time.
Okay. And I just also want to go back and talk just a little bit about how your father came into wealth.
Oh, right. Well, yeah, he started a computer leasing business in the 70s, off the back of a £50,000 bank loan. And he had a business partner, but that's all the capital they had to start with. And he created this company from nothing.
Hmm.
And in 1980, they floated it on the stock market. And that's when the stock market was going through a heyday. And he did become a millionaire overnight. And it all happened very quickly. His company grew very fast and he became very successful like that. And then he moved into motor racing later.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. I see. And something that you said in our the emails that we've been trading back and forth and messages was you said that you got what you wanted, but you didn't get what you needed. And I'm curious about what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody thinks it's just so great to have a lot of money land in your lap, which is effectively what happened to me. It
Mm-hmm.
was extreme wealth, and I got control of it very early, very young. And yeah, on one hand, it was great. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, it is nice to be able to. I could walk into any shop on the King's Road or on Bond Street and buy an item of clothing that I liked. And wealth solves a lot of problems. I mean, you can throw it at problems, and yeah, it's great. But it doesn't give you any meaning. It doesn't give you any self-satisfaction or inner fulfillment. These glittery, glossy, you know, glossy items, the pleasure of buying them lasts 5 minutes.
Okay.
Whereas other things, so that's where I didn't get any spiritually, I was unfulfilled, and inside I had a massive void that I was filling with shopping. And in fact, my trustee had told me most people, Sharon, they just go shopping in your position. And I was like, well, I find this quite boring. I don't really like shopping's quite boring. I mean, it's a thrill momentarily, a bit like a drug. Yeah, it fills a gap for a minute, but then it's gone. And yeah, I wasn't getting enough good guidance, I think, about what to do with my life. And also, I'm quite a strong personality, and this is the problem with I think a lot of people who inherit wealth. If they're not given the right framework to work in with that, they can end up going a long way down the wrong path with it. And you don't tend, I wasn't really listening to other people either.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And when you say the right framework, I'm curious about what you mean by that.
Well, obviously now I look and I can see that if there'd been some kind of strong mission statement, if my father had left a strong ethos about what the money was to be used for, or what our family ethos was, then it would have been easier to navigate. But I think it was just he was so young, we were all so fresh into this world that we just became the money. I just became the money, and my identity started to be money. I used to care about what I needed to look the right part for people, to be wearing, I used to have the right handbag and the right shoes and the right clothes, and I needed to live in a nice house and drive the right car. And that's how it all became quite important to put up this identity of being a wealthy heiress. But in fact, in Brussels, that was quite nice to step out of that. I actually managed to step out of that mold for a while, for a time, and that really helped me.
Okay. And I'm really curious about, when did the internal shift start for you from being an heiress, and having and looking the part and having that identity, to making a different shift? Was there some sort of event that happened for you, or was it a gradual process?
Well, I mean, I had a baby. That was the start.
Okay.
So that was a big wake-up call. And that forces you to grow up anyway, mature in another way entirely. So that gradually moved me to think more seriously about my legacy and my position and what I was contributing to society in the world. But if you're asking me for when I particularly realized that I'd lost myself, that was when I read a line in a book, and it said something. It was something along the lines of, "You're in this." You're in this world that you didn't create. You're still in your parents' world when you didn't like it there when you were a child. And so now you're not happy with yourself now, because yeah, I was still living in that world that I had kind of tried to reject as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yet inadvertently I was in it because of the default inheritance. So ultimately, I wasn't loving myself properly. That's what it ultimately came down to. And I realized I had a big crisis on my hands.
And so, how did you start loving yourself?
Well, I went back to nature. So I'd always been loving the outdoors. I went for walks as a kid, in the countryside, So this wasn't a sudden shock, and I did a lot of outdoors adventures with my daughter's father. So this but I went back to real basics. So I went back to camping, sleeping in a tent, and I just really tried to get to a oneness with nature to try and find my true self again, to try and find my values and my values apart from the family and all that clutter that I inherited. And my values, what was it that was so important to me? And why was I not, yeah, why was I not in a place of self-love and bliss? And I started to make the goals different. My goal became, I'm seeking peace of mind. This is what I'm looking for. Peace of mind.
And it, it, how crucial was it for you to get back to nature and to the outdoors? And what did that show you?
I think the nature is so good because it doesn't judge and it
Mm,
doesn't criticize,
yeah.
it doesn't judge. It's perfect in its imperfection. Um, I was coming from a lot of expectations had been placed on me, a lot of criticism from my mother, and I'd internalized a lot of this. So I needed to get back to being to kindness, to loving kindness. And nature teaches us that because we ultimately all came from nature. That was the beginnings, the origins of what we are from dust to dust. Um,
Mm,
and it's just perfect. It doesn't want for anything. It doesn't judge. It just is. And I think that's what it is. And then you can start to achieve oneness with nature where you feel whole and peaceful again. And then there's the other side of it where it is when you're talking about big mountains and the ocean,
mm.
and then that just puts life into perspective because that's so much bigger than us. There's no comparison. So then we realize that we're just a speck.
And a lot of people, if they hear that, might be frightened by that. Especially to me, if it seems like you've got a lot of wealth, you are, if not a master of the universe, on maybe on that path. And then, you climb a mountain or like you have done, solo sail the North Sea and the Baltic Sea. And and that can be jarring, I would imagine, going from that, the perspective of, being rich and being wealthy to just being a little speck on a rough and tumbling sea. Did you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the money's not going to save me out there.
Right. Right. Absolutely
Uh,
right.
Aside from you can make the right decisions and
Mm,
get a good boat.
right. Yeah. And so and how did you get into sailing?
Well, yeah, I mean, I was sailing as a kid. I mean,
Okay.
my father introduced me to sailing.
Hmm.
So it wasn't the only thing we did as children, but it was a big part of our childhood. We went on a few trips with my father. He wasn't particularly a good sailor. We didn't do it very often, and the best sailing I did was when I went on a little dinghy. He threw me on a little laser dinghy, and that's really the training ground for sailing. So then I had a dream of sailing across the Atlantic,
Okay.
which I did do in that time just after Brussels. And I did it with some other people. So I did it with a professional skipper, and he taught me everything I know. That was really the training ground for offshore sailing.
Hmm.
Um, I that Atlantic Passage, we were 3 weeks at sea, and it taught me a lot. And you never lose it, you never forget the muscle memory of that situation. Stayed with me.
Hmm.
That stayed with me. So later on in life, when my daughter was older, and been betrayed. I'd had a lot of betrayals in business and in my personal life, and I was feeling it was a very low point. And it was a sort of extension of I went to the country and did this camping, and then I saw a sailboat in the middle of a loch and realized that that was where I needed to go. I needed to get back on the water and back onto a sailing boat. And I got inspired to do it solo by a chap on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was quite keen on this guy on YouTube, watching him, and he was doing a lot of solo sailing in Northern Europe, and I thought, if he can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, can you tell us a little bit about your first solo sailing adventure?
Well, so I started off in Britain, where I felt comfortable, really my own country. And initially, I took some local girls out with me as crew, and they would just help me to get familiar with the boat and familiar with the the tidal situation, coast. And very quickly, I got comfortable and then just took increasingly bigger baby steps outside my comfort zone with each passage. I would do a night passage, I would make it longer, I would go in slightly worse weather. I would just gradually up the ante each voyage.
Hmm. And I mean, that sounds like such a smart move, to do to
Oh, thank
build,
you.
yeah, to build it gradually, because
Yeah.
it can be too easy to like go, okay, I'm going to do a solo Atlantic passage, straight away. And
Yeah.
it, build, what was it like building the skills to do that in the way that you did?
Yeah, I mean, it is dangerous. It's a dangerous pursuit. So, and I had a healthy respect for the sea. So I was quite cognizant of that. I really got to know myself, my strengths, and when I was better, and what I wasn't quite so good at. And I deliberately bought a new boat that was not going to have any technical issues because I knew I wasn't good at that side of things. That was not my strength. Um, and I just gradually layered up my skills, as you say, taking it. I did take it pretty slowly, and I only sailed in the summer season. I didn't go out in the winter. I took a rest. So, but the first passage, the first crossing to Norway, I had originally planned for a crew member to come with me, but he let me down and he couldn't make it. So actually, it just turned out that decided, oh, I can do this by myself. I think I've got enough. I've got enough knowledge now. I've got enough experience, and I just chose a nice, good, easy weather window to cross the North Sea to Norway. So it was okay. But I was scared, and I was always a little bit scared out there.
And that fear, I I guess we can call it a fear. What is how useful is that fear to you while you're making these passages?
Extremely useful. And I think fear is very intelligent and it's there for a good reason. So if we're not feeling any fear, then I would worry because we're
Yeah,
not
right.
feeling, yeah, we're
Hmm.
not feeling, fear is there for a good reason. So as I say, I took it slowly, but it really taught me about learning to trust myself again and my intuition.
Mm.
And this is something that's so easy to lose touch with in the modern world, um, regardless of having money or not. And yeah, the decisions I took on the boat really proved to me what I was capable of and that I was learning to trust myself again.
And what did you learn about yourself out out there in the sea?
Um, well, I learned that I just got to know that when conditions were more favorable for me, like I was better at doing nights and better at going on. on into the night. Like I would just go out one day, started quite late in the day, and I would just sail on through the night into midnight or 2 in the morning or something. And also I got to know that pushing through that fear, by pushing through those fears and working through frustrations, on the other side of that lay a great sense of personal freedom, a feeling of freedom. Sailing is good for the soul. Everyone knows that. It's a great grounding mechanism, grounding tool, so you can get in touch with who you really are, and you get immediate feedback. You make a decision with the sail or the setup of the boat, and you get immediate feedback as to whether you've made the right call there. Those sorts of things. It amazed me how capable I was, and actually I was much more capable of things than I'd realized. Incredibly so.
And when you made that discovery, what did that feel like?
Well, it's great boosting of self-esteem, self-confidence, and just personal power. Because when I came into money like that, I always thought that the power was out there, that the money was the power. And there is some power. You walk into these rooms where there's wealth and there is power. But ultimately, there's also a personal power within us. And we're children of God, and that is what I found out at sea. I discovered the power and the strength within me.
Mm-hmm. And I want to take a little bit of a turn and talk about something that I saw on your website. And you said that the mask is very useful until it isn't. And the moment it stops fitting is not a catastrophe, it's an invitation. And what is that mask, do you think? And what is it an invitation to?
Well, sadly, with money, you do have to be careful. You're at the mercy of everybody else's needs, whether it be for business investment or family. So you do build up a protective defense mechanism, and you start to push everything and everybody away. And this is not good for you in your life. If you are a people person like myself and you would like to connect with other people, but on a more authentic, equal level. So this is where my defensive mask of persona of rich woman does not fit me, and doesn't really gel with the whole get down dirty nature person that I am as well. Um, and just like to be with people. So getting rid of that mask, and it's an existential crisis, isn't it? Basically, your life falls apart. You can go through some real existential change at a cellular level, and it gives you the invitation to start all over again, to build a new foundation for your life.
And how hard do you think it is to answer that call, that invitation, and start your life all over again? Because I think it feels like for some people, whether or not they have wealth, it's easier just to stay in the lane that they're in. It's less scary. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it, it is, and it is hard. And it's taken me, look, I mean, hey, I'm in my 50s, so it's taken me a lot of years to face this. And I had some really difficult emotions that I had buried, and it was a long time ago. So they were deeply ingrained in me and the person that I was, but they become blocks in your growth, and blocks to who you're really truly meant to be. So I had to work hard to rebuild myself through, but things helped, like the sailing helped big time, nature and motherhood. That pushes you into places that perhaps you don't want to go. And people will do that to you. Your triggers will do that. And, I had to face some really difficult emotions. And I would love it. Yes, I tell you, I would like not to have had to do that. But yeah.
And and do you find that even though that work, that the digging in of the emotions, that work was its own reward?
Well, it's what comes out of it, isn't it? I mean, as my goal was peace, and and I go into more detail in my book, that I just want to being happy is a difficult thing, but I think aiming for joy is a good thing, is easier to do. Finding joy in life, aiming for peace, and all this is achievable with very little money. And in fact, it's not about the money at all. And I've moved stepped a long way away from that world, and I'm in a different place now.
Yeah, and and you've talked about returning to yourself, and your return happened at sea. And what did solo sailing require from you that ordinary life had allowed you to avoid?
Yeah, I mean, you're sitting on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and there is no running away. There is nowhere to go, and that's it. You have to just face your feelings, or the difficult situation you're in. Perhaps I was in a thunderstorm at one point, extremely scared, um, but and worked through the fight or flight. But then I get into harbour later, and I burst into tears, and there's a release. So it was a really effective tool for like dredging up the emotions and then releasing them. Also, sailing it's very basic, because all it is your boat, you, and the water. It's simple, it's simplistic, and you are totally immersed in the present moment. So it's transcendental meditation at its best. And that's an excellent way to reprogram your subconscious mind, reprogram the beliefs you have about yourself, and bring up all these difficult emotions. It was a great tool like that. And then it'll give you it's physical, it's embodiment, so you're in your body. And my boat, I got very attached to my boat, as you do. uh, so she became like a safe harbor to me. So she was like family. It's like I was like home again, and I felt a great sense of belonging in the boat.
Hmm.
So that gave me the safety that I needed to then go out on these adventures and push myself outside of my comfort zone. So it worked. It had a double it worked in both ways. That's what made it so, yeah, it wouldn't have been so effective perhaps if I'd been on a rented boat, or or a boat with other people. Just wouldn't have been the same thing. It was like a replacement almost of family scenario. You're home, and then you're stepping out to push yourself to have that madcap adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would imagine that, yeah, sailing can be a madcap adventure. Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to a lot of sailors after. They always wanted to talk to me. They're really interested in like wanting to know the dodgy moments.
Mm-hmm.
What were the dodgy moments?
Yeah. I mean, those dodgy moments make for great stories.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, sure. As
We have to go through them.
Yeah, that's true. And it's a totally different scenario. Totally different scenario. So as we start to wrap up, I just want to, did through my questions, is there anything that I missed that you would like to add?
Oh, well, I think as you're in this change space, change management space, aren't you? Coaching. I mean, we my philosophy on life is that I'm continually looking for that fear and where I'm feeling that edge of fear, and that's where I'm going and pushing through that, because I know on the other side of that will be freedom. And that's what I'm searching for all the time. But not, it doesn't have to be in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Just small little things. And I think this is so important if we want to be growth and we want to be fully mature, fully whole people. This is a big part of my life. And also the reconnection with nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely essential to our being, and it can reprogram our brain and help us be more loving, both to ourselves and to each other.
Wow, that's a wonderful place to wrap up. And Sharon, thank you so much for your time today. And how can people reach you if they have any questions or they want to know more about you?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a website. Just type in my name on Google and it'll come up, and you can reach me through there.
And I'll have that in the show notes. And your book again is coming out on October 6th.
Yeah, unmoored, sailing alone towards wholeness. Yeah.
Right. Looking forward to that coming out. So, Sharon, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciated it and learned a lot from you in this time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Richard.
If you're looking for work that works for you, come find me at richardtaliaferro.com. Thanks for listening, and talk to you next week.